Medianoche.
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 Podcast.
Medianoche.
Podcast.
Medianoche.
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 Podcast.
1 2 1 2. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. Your mic sound good?
Sound nice.
Alright. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Yo, Art, where's your beard at? Oh, you know, Darren back. What's up, y'all? It's Art Morera. Welcome to another episode of the Medianoche podcast. This is episode 8, and I'm excited for this one, man. This is a homie that I look up to. To me, he's an OG, a legend, really. But do you hear that often?
I get sometimes. I don't know. It just feels weird when people say that.
Probably from me. I'm gonna make you feel mad weird when I compliment you, man. This is my man, Alphabeat. What's up, bro?
Yo. What's going on, everybody in Radio Land?
How's it feel?
It feels great. This is awesome.
For those that don't know, on my first mixtape, my first solo mixtape, 12 a.m., Alphabeat produced the song Dominate, and he produced the song Ambitious. And then my first album, he also did the title track, Around Midnight, and then The Allure. We made a few tracks.
Damn, I forgot about those joints.
For real?
Well, I haven't thought about them in a while.
Yeah. That sounds so much better. Word. And you also did that song Ceviche with Rev and I as well.
I did.
Yeah, man. Alphabeat is like, you know, you're a dope producer, man. But
Thank you.
But like, do you get as much recognition? Do you feel like you get more recognition for you as a producer as you are like a master engineer?
I don't. Just because I don't produce that often. Like I always tell people like I can't sit there and make mad beats. Like that's not. Like I was one day sit down, like yesterday, like I was at the crib and I was like, I'm gonna make a beat today, and I made this beat. And it took me all day. And like I worked on it all day. So I'm kind of like, I tend to be like methodical in my process. And it takes me a while. And it doesn't bother me that it takes me a while. So like I never felt like that pressure. Like, yo, I got to make 10 beats every day. Like, I don't fucking care. Like when it comes out, it comes out. And so like my output as far as like making beats has not been anywhere near my output as being an engineer. So...
But I'm assuming that like you have much more fun making beats than you do engineering, because you've engineered so much it almost becomes you're like a little numb to the magic.
Sometimes like, I mean, I love engineering when it's like my favorite sessions to engineer like writing sessions, or like when people are like creating music from scratch. Because then, like, you're there and it's, like, wild creative and you're part of it. But, like, for instance, like, if the beat's done and it's like, oh, we're just going to now, like, finally recut the vocals, like, that's fucking boring.
Got you.
So, in that sense, yeah, like, production sometimes is more fun. But there's parts of engineering that are really exciting for me.
I remember when I first met you, J5 put me onto you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yo, you're going to like this cat, dude. He's a legend, my G. You don't understand. This dude is again, I see you feeling a little weird right there. Again. Word. And I was like, shit, okay, word. And I remember back then, like, I was a little bit more egotistical. Like, I was like, word, okay, that sounds about right. I should probably be working with people of that caliber, you know? Whereas now I'm like the total opposite. Like, I'm like, you know...
Yeah,
I went from one side of the extreme to the other, and like, but like you stayed cool all along, man. I remember even before you started working at SAE, when you were telling me, yeah, I'm thinking about it. And like, how long has it been now since you've been working there?
Damn, since like 2011, so like 7 years.
7 years, that's wild.
It's a long time.
Do a lot of people look up to you there? Like, would you say so?
I don't know about look up, but definitely I know that a lot of the kids there, and I call them kids, some of them are adults, but I still call them kids. I think that they see I guess the word is like, I don't want to say authenticity, but something along that line. Like they see like when I tell them things, it's not because I want to gloat or I want to like shit on anybody. It's like it comes from an authentic place. Like I really want you to be better. Like one of my favorite things to say when people be like, "Oh, I want to be like you when I grow up," and I'd be like, "Don't be like me." I'm like, "Be better than me." Like, and that's really what I want for most people. I think me going there was mad good for me because I think I've always been a natural teacher. Like I'm always like, I get excited about knowing new things, and I get excited about showing somebody something new.
Yeah.
So I think that they see that like I genuinely want them to know something, so they kind of just like really appreciate it.
And it's true. I can tell that you get like you get something out of just putting people onto stuff. You're not stingy with the know-how. I would hit you on the FaceTime like, yo Frank, hey, what do you recommend I do about this EQ? And then like you would always hit me with these like vague responses like, well, let me ask you something. Does it sound good to you? And I'm like, I guess, yeah. And you're like, all right then.
Yeah.
You know? Like instead of being on some, okay, turn down the
Right.
this a little bit. There you go. And you're hearing it through iPhone speakers, you know?
Yeah. I was laughing because I remember that that template that I sent you that one time.
Yeah.
That in the comments it said, "Tell your moms I like my shit scrambled." I don't know if you ever noticed.
I remember that. I remember that. In the notes. Yeah.
Did I tell you how that happened?
It was with you and J5.
Yeah, me and J5 were FaceTiming, and he couldn't hear me. And then so I was just typing in Pro Tools like what I wanted him to do, and then his mom was in that room in the house, and she was like, "Do you want eggs?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Tell your mom I want my shit scrambled."
Damn, that's wild. You just gave me closure for these notes like set like 8 years later. That's wild.
You know, it's funny because sometimes you would send me the session with the template, and I would see that shit and I would die laughing. Like,
Yeah, because I just didn't know how to work Pro Tools nearly as much to play with that. Yeah, that's funny. I actually think that I still have. I know I still have the sessions from the songs I work with that template on. But like, so I'm pretty sure those notes are still in there. You know,
fire.
Yeah. And that template like helped me a lot, man, because like I didn't know how to automate like delay or reverb, and you told me, all right, just listen, just keep this echo like at like a -17. I remember you told me that number specifically, like, and I always did. Whereas now, like since I learned how to do automation, it's just so much more like free of use, you know. Which DAW, if like you prefer Pro Tools out of all of them?
I mean, for like recording and mixing, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's been my tool for 20 years now.
Wow. Yeah. What did they have before Pro Tools? After analog, what was it?
Well, they didn't really have anything. Like Pro Tools came out pretty early in the digital game, probably like 92. Well, it wasn't Pro Tools. It was called Sound Tools. And
that's the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it came out pretty early, and then they converted to Pro Tools when they were able to do multi-track. But I got the first time I used Pro Tools was 1998, and it was like Pro Tools 3.
Damn, that's wild.
She was basic.
Cause like when my homies and I, like when we talk about like, damn, what did Tupac record on or whatever, like tape, right? Mm-hmm. Damn, that's crazy.
I mean, there was digital tape at one point. These things called ADATs and D88s, which is basically like ADAT used like VHS tape, and then D88s used like the high 8 that you would put in the camcorders.
Wow.
But it was still tape, and you still had to rewind it and fast forward and like all that shit.
But like that medium has like a certain little texture to it, you know?
It's not good though. Yeah. It's like all the bad shit about digital that people would complain about was because of the way that those things sounded. It was mad, like just like what's the word? Sterile.
Okay.
Like mad clean, but like super like clean and not like in a good way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like for someone that's not really familiar with like how you are, like you use the word clean to try to describe the sound. And for someone,
and some people would be like, "That's good."
Yeah, they don't know what that means. Yeah.
So like, this is engineer nerd talk. So, one of the reasons that there's like people are like always like vinyl and analog and all this blah 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 is that when you record or you play back audio through an analog device, meaning a device that has no digital component, like it's just electricity running through other electrical components, things are added, typically like harmonic stuff, just because it's all the gear you're running through. And that tends to, because even though it's a bunch of separate instruments, they're all running through the same equipment. And because it's all getting that same texture from that device, it tends to help bring all the tracks together and make it feel like what sometimes people call glue. And when you were recording on those D88s and ADATs and even early digital, you no longer had that glue. So people were just like it was too perfect. It was too much, like too clean, too separate. Like it didn't have that thing that brought it together. So people would kind of like, it would be like, imagine this. Imagine you ate a sandwich and you could taste every individual part of that sandwich. But it didn't taste like they were together. It just tasted like every separate part.
That's wild.
That is wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's the best explanation I could give.
Like one of these days, I'm gonna get all the ingredients for a sandwich, but I'm gonna lay them on a plate and I'm gonna just eat each part by itself.
Yeah, like they could all be great parts, but they work really well as a sandwich. But if you ate everything separate, it wouldn't give you the same satisfaction.
Wild. Man, that's crazy. Like, do you watch, like, do you spend time on YouTube watching like audio engineering like channels? Yeah. Like Pensado's Plays. Do you watch Pensado's Plays?
I watch that shit all the time.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, people ask me that. They're like, do you watch this? Or like, do you know, like, it's not that I don't know how to do those things, but I'm always interested in learning new things, or like maybe somebody's doing something different.
Yeah, like that's your world. So like them talking about it, you geek out on it.
Yeah, and it's just like, and because of my experience, like it's easier for me to grasp concepts. And then maybe sometimes I watch it just to like get an idea. Like something they say, I might not do the thing they say, but it'll spark a different idea.
Yeah, you just kind of like, you see it from a different vantage point. Oh, that's interesting. I just think that mixing over the years is just so subjective, you know?
It is.
Like,
it's like producing.
Word. Like someone, almost to the point where if you ask somebody for their take on something, you are like, you're poking holes on what you think about your craft, just, you know, unbiasedly, you know? Like, hey, I think this is really good. Do you think I should change something? And they'll be like, I'm not really crazy about that hi-hat. But it's like,
right.
If the song were to have come out and they had no input on it, it would exist as it is. And whether they like it or not, like there's a certain little confianza there with it, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think what mixing is like, is a pretty creative part. And obviously it's like, it is super subjective. And what your tastes are, definitely are a big part of what you do and how you like hearing things. Like, you know, there are a lot of really successful mix engineers that they are really good at not per se like, oh, this is my sound or this is the thing. They just understand what needs to happen for that record to work, which I think is probably the most important part. So it's not so much about like, oh, I have this gear or this is how I mix my vocals or it's more like, this is what needs to happen for this record to be at its peak. And I think the mixers who are really successful are the ones that can actually do that.
Okay. So like, word. Well, you know, like speaking of that, let me ask you something. Do you feel like, you know how like when rap music started, first it was, the focus point was on the DJ. Then the MC would hype the crowd to like, you know, to compliment the DJ.
Yeah.
Then the focus point went to rappers. And then that's been going on ever since. But then also the producers started to kind of get their shine a little bit. Like, do you feel like maybe like the next part coming? Like, I asked this to a guest that I had here, Ghost, on episode 2, and I wanted to get your take on it. Do you think that the next focus point in hip hop music is going to be like the engineer?
I don't know. I mean, I think what more likely will be that the engineering and production will start to blend together a little bit more. So I think the person who's just an engineer, I think that person that job is not going to be here very much longer. I think,
okay.
I think realistically, we'll see more producers who are as technically proficient as most engineers nowadays, and you'll just see like a hybrid engineer producer person. And I think because they are the producers as well, they'll get a little bit more shine, and it'll just become like the mad scientist guy.
Yeah, because I see like on YouTube, like some producers, there's all these videos of how they made the beat, and then they'll be like, yeah, so I added this cool reverb, and I just turned up I changed the room it was in, and they're using effects in like as instruments, you know?
Yeah. I
Word.
mean, you have to think about like I guess with the ease that you can do all that stuff now, because it used to be like if you were a producer, let's say like in the hip hop sense of the word, like you're the guy who made the beats. Not only would you have learned how to use all your equipment, like your drum machine and the MIDI with the keyboards and the sequencer and all this other stuff, and chopping up the samples and the sampler and all that other stuff, but now on top of that, if you had to learn how to work the console and signal flow and recording and like all that stuff, that was a lot, you know. And then, you know, sometimes I feel like engineering is such a kind of a right brain kind of thing, like technical, that sometimes you get, you know, it can impede the other brain. Or is it right brain? Right brain.
One of them.
One of the brains. Help us out. Call us in 1-900-822. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I woke up this morning to some strange numbers on my missed call list. I don't even want to get into that.
But yeah, so I just feel like we'll see more of a hybrid kind of producer engineer person, and that'll just be the person that gets the shine. I mean, realistically, there's people who are making music. I mean, look at the Gorillas. They're not even real people.
Yeah.
And that's an idea of Damien Albarn and a few other people working together. So I could probably see like a producer generate, you know, a make-believe artist like they do in Japan, and then just having like a whole band that's just based around his production that he engineers and he mixes, and it's just like an entire project. I think somebody could do that now if they wanted to, realistically.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's probably already happening all over. They just aren't as known yet.
Yeah, especially over here. But I think in Japan they have a couple of like animated artists that aren't like real people.
I've been looking for like animators. Are you familiar with that YouTube channel? It's like Chill Hop, where like they play like
I heard
lo-fi.
about that something. I
It's
think
like,
on Vice the other day or something.
yeah, it's like lo-fi, like down tempo hip hop.
It was like anime stuff.
Yeah, it's like a girl doing homework in her room, and like I want to find the person that does that. I mean, I emailed this one person. I haven't gotten a reply from them, but I'm really interested in working with someone that does that. Yeah,
there was like an article on Vice about that the other day. I just thought it was pretty interesting. I haven't checked out the channel. Is it cool?
Hell yeah. You can like you could put it on. I mean, like you just put it on, just listen. It's just awesome.
It's like chill out.
Yeah, it's like music that you play while you do stuff around your crib, like Zen. You know.
Word.
I don't see myself driving to it too much because like when I drive, I like to, I don't know, I like to write rhymes and stuff. I'll probably write something to it.
Yeah.
But so look, man,
the Art Morera chili coming soon.
Yeah, you never know. I had this idea where like, because this is animation of this girl doing homework, and then every now and then you'll see her pen move, and then she'll like turn a page, and then that loops. You get me?
Gotcha.
So I had this idea of like you see my hand holding onto the handlebar of my bicycle, and Morty's running in the background.
Oh, just like loop it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
You know, I want that. You know, so
that's cool.
If anyone does that, I'm gonna be so pissed. You know, I'm gonna be like, yo, like if it's specifically Morty, if it's another breed of animal, I'm gonna be like, all right, whatever, straight. But man, I wanted to ask you, like, you know, over the years that I've known you, I tried not to touch on it too much because, like, you know, like, I didn't want to come off like weird asking, but like, bro, what's it like working with? What was it like working with? Like, oh man, if you don't want to answer it straight,
no, it's cool.
But like, what was it like working with Amy Winehouse, bro?
Like Amy, I always tell people the same. Like people ask me that shit all the time. Like Amy was like the nicest person I've ever met, and she was like super, like obviously like protective of like the people around her, but she was a sweetheart, and she was really nice and like super honest. So like if she didn't like something, she'd just be like, I don't like that. and there was no like sugarcoating, which I really appreciated. And then she was just wild talented, like ridiculous. Like you're just there like, fuck, this person has like all the talents. You know what I'm saying? Like just a ridiculous amount of talent. Like you ever seen somebody who's like retardedly talented? And I don't mean to use that word, but it was just ridiculous amount of talent that you could just be like, I could never be that talented. Like I could try as hard as I can to play any instrument, and I would never have that much like just natural ability, which is what she had. So it was pretty special. You know?
And that was when you was working with what's his name, Salam Remy.
Salam, yeah.
So you were like the assistant to the engineer, or you were just kind of
no, I was the engineer.
You were the engineer.
Yeah. So I did all the recording for the first album it was Salam and Gary did most of the recording.
Gary Noble.
Gary Noble.
Yeah.
You should have him on here.
I would love Gary Noble to have to be on here.
You probably have to go meet him somewhere, but
like back when I was in DMG in 2007, like Gary Noble he came through to the studio a couple times and he liked the music and all that, but like I was more timid back then to kind of like approach people. But man, I would love to have Gary Noble.
Yeah, Gary's the shit. I love Gary. But yeah, Gary on the first album that she did, where Salam did a bunch of the stuff, Gary was the engineer, and then on Back to Black, Gary at that point was like doing more mixing, and then I was like Salam's everyday guy. So I kind of got to be with her and spend, a good amount of time with her during the recording. And I was the one who basically did all the recording at the house because we recorded at Salam's house. And then Gary did the mixing.
I would love to have a house that I can just like have my studio in there. Like I'm just not crazy about big studios anymore. It's just my personal preference. Like you walk into a room.
I mean, Salam's house is really big. So
well, if it's a big studio and an even bigger house, that's
yeah.
I guess
Salam's house. I mean, the studios aren't huge, but most of the recording was done in the living room, and the living room is pretty big. So
what are some? Thank you, man, for telling me how it was. I always wanted to ask you, but I just
it's cool. I think sometimes for a while I wouldn't want to talk about because I feel like people wanted some sensational story. And that just get on my nerves.
Nah, I actually was. Your story was more or less in the ballpark of what I imagined it to be, just normal.
Yeah, she was super cool. But and I'm not saying you wanted that, but I feel like sometimes people would ask me and be like, "What was it like?" Like they wanted me to say some crazy story, and I'm like, "It's not what we were doing."
Yeah, because people think that's like celebrities and famous people that their life is just a nonstop circus, you know?
Yeah, it's not.
And it's not. It's just regular shit. But the only thing that gets a spotlight, it's like Instagram. The only thing that gets a spotlight is the cool stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But so let me ask you, man, do you have any when I would be in the studio, I mean, it's been a while since I've been to a bigger studio since I have my own stuff here, but when I used to go to the studio, I was never crazy about mad bottles and all this stuff, turning it into a party atmosphere. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're into, but as my preference, I just kind of was more focused on just the work. How do you prefer your the setting to be for you to be able to work?
For me, I don't really care. I don't have a preference. Just because I know I've worked with both sides. I've worked in the super chill sessions where there isn't any partying going on and it's really about work. And then I've been in the sessions that's a party, and people are drinking and smoking and doing whatever. I just know that for different people, the studio means different things. So some people's creative environment is quiet and some incense or candles and making sure that they eat their shit that they like. And, that everything is set up and there's not a lot of people there so that they can feel creative. And then for some people to feel creative, they need a party. So I'm not for one or the other. Yeah, I mean, I'm just there to capture the magic when I'm engineering. That's my job.
It just sounds like you understand that your purpose in the studio is to just capture that moment in a jar.
That's it. That's my job. And that's what I tell people all the time. A lot of younger people who decided to take this path sometimes take things personally. And it's just you're not. That's not your job right now, is not to be the focus of attention. You should be invisible. Like it should feel like there's this magician running all the equipment, but you can't see him.
It makes sense now why you got into candid photography. You know, because like in that sense, you also just capture the moments.
Yeah, it's the same. They're definitely two very noticeable parts of my personality. I'm not like a big rah person, so like photography is cool because I don't know. Like I always looked at stuff weird, and I would be like, "Oh, that looks really cool," and then be like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, the way that those drapes are draped around that window." I'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I'd be like, "Oh, that shit looks cool to me." And if I take a picture of it, then maybe somebody else could see it too. So that's kind of how I always looked at stuff.
Word, man. So like, yeah, like when I got into photography too, like it's just a cool, like little craft, man. Like, I mean, I got the camera because I needed to get photos of my own, of me, like, you know, for my own use as an artist. But after a while, I started to take photos of random things, and like it's just awesome little, outlet.
It's a cool thing until you start trying to make money from it. Then it becomes annoying. Don't do that. It's annoying.
Yeah.
Not trying to, but like I actually have made money from photography, and it's just when you turn it into work, it's like it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, and like really, I feel like photographers. I mean, I could probably just be talking out of my like right now, but for everyone, like the whole marketing behind like how popular photography is getting now, and how all these DSLRs are coming out, like expensive and inexpensive, entry level, point and shoot. Like I imagine it's gonna be a little bit harder for people to become lucrative in photography. You know.
I think. Well, I think at the end of the day, a good photographer is a good photographer. So the fact that a lot more people have access to the equipment to make great photographs is great. But at the end of the day, it's the photographer. It's just like audio equipment. Like you have a studio right here.
I know.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's not that hard anymore. But at the end of the day, not everybody's making great music.
Right.
Because it still takes a great producer and a great artist and a great engineer and all that other stuff to make great music, the same way that it takes a great photographer to take great pictures. You might accidentally get lucky every now and then and take an awesome picture as a novice photographer, but to repeat it is the hard part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Art's like, fuck you, bro.
No. I mean, shit, I'm not a pro photographer.
Neither am I.
You know, but and that's the thing. Like, you know, I kind of got caught I got a little lost in the sauce when like I started to learn a little bit more about videography, because I'm like, man, I need my videos done, you know, and like I got a little lost in the sauce of like I would go on YouTube and I'll learn how to use the camera. I'll study like videography, and then I did my own first video, and the feedback was positive. They'll be like, yo, who did that? I'm like, oh, I did. You know, I had my homegirl, or like my ex, she would hold the camera like just to kind of hook me up with those with those performance clips. But like I did all the color correcting and editing and all that, and then people were like, yo, can you do that for me? And I saw that as, damn, I could make some money from it. And then like I'll link up with these artists, and we agreed on what I was gonna get paid for what I was going to do, but they'll ask you for more and make you feel weird about not turning it down, you know?
Yeah.
And I just didn't like the way that felt. So like, I was like, all right, I mean, I should be doing music anyway. Let me just kind of not solicit this like service anymore.
And
you know?
that typically is the reason why when you go to a professional, whatever it is, they usually charge a lot more, because they already have that experience. Of like that person's gonna come back to you. I just had the conversation today with somebody, a person, a graduate that was in my class, is considering opening their own studio. And one of the things that they mentioned to me was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do like this package where I'll do the video and do the artwork and and do the social, you know, for one song." And I was like, "Don't do that." And they're like, "Why?" I'm like, first of all, who's going to do all this other stuff? Well, I could do it. I know how to use Photoshop. I'm like, yeah, but how much are you going to charge? And then when they told me the amount, I was like, okay, how long is it going to take you to do the video? And they were like, probably the entire day. And I was like, okay, now divide the amount of money that you're charging by 10 hours. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense, what you're charging for that. So I think sometimes when professionals charge a bunch of monies because they know how long things it take and they know what's going to happen after they turn it in, and you're going to come back 10 times and go change this, change this, change this, change this. So they kind of set themselves up to be successful in that way.
Yeah. Okay. I feel you. Like they almost like set a high price, not only because they know their value, but they know that like the initial idea is not going to be exactly how it's executed, and it's going to take up more of their time.
They're going to know all the little pitfalls that you're going to fall into and all the things. Like people ask me all the time about stuff. They'll be like, yo, what should I do? And then I'll tell them, and they'll be like, well, I kind of want to do it like this. And I'll be like, well, if you do that, then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. But you do you. And then typically those people will come back and be like, damn, bro, how did you know? And I'm like, because I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
You know?
I hear you. Yeah, I feel you, man. I mean, like, but through trial and error, people just kind of learn that. And I've had some bad experience. I've had some pretty rough experiences working with difficult people, but I feel like with me the entire time, man, it's just that I just wanted to make music. I just wanted to make enough money to be able to do music and like invest money into like the career and shit, and like, and when you work with people that they get difficult, you start to question if like even having a business relationship with them is in your best interest, and then they your reputation starts kind of like getting dictated by who you associate yourself with and how you handle their personality and stuff. I don't know. It's just a lot, you know?
It is. I mean, I think whenever you're dealing with creatives, it can be difficult because especially if it's like two creatives. For instance, like you're an artist and you perform music, and now you're creating a video with a videographer who's also technically an artist because they have their vision. And sometimes the visions don't line up. Or one person wasn't clear with what they thought the vision was, and then that could just get really hairy. So I'm a big fan of like talking things all the way out, and even if somebody's feelings get hurt, and that way you just know whatever, like, oh, we're not going to move forward with this, or we are going to move forward with this. So like when I talk to people about like getting their stuff mixed, like I have these long conversations with them about like what their expectations are, so that I know if I can hit them or not. Sometimes people have expectations that aren't realistic, and I'm like, I can't do that. And people are like, oh, but I'm going to pay you. I'm like, it's not about how much you're paying me. It's like, I know that I'm not going to be able to give you the thing that you want.
Would you mind giving me like kind of an example of something that they would ask for that it's not possible?
Sometimes like somebody will send me a track, right? And they'll be like, oh, I want this mixed. And then they'll send me the reference, like, oh, this is what I want it to sound like. And I'll listen to what they send me, and then what I have from them, and I'll be like, that's not going to happen. Like, and I know you're going to be unhappy, and you're going to keep coming back to me. Maybe somebody else can tell you that they can do it. I'm not going to do that. And I'll just, like, turn down the work.
But, like, oh, man, I mean, that's so obscure. Like, I mean, what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. But, like, I'm trying to think of one song having it sound like another. Okay, so you're saying someone that does, like, just a trap record, and they'll be like, I want it to kind of sound a little bit like Eleanor Rigby from the Beatles.
No, not even.
Like
no, more like you recorded, let's just say, a trap song, and you sent me another trap song that's actually a record that's actually out. Excuse me. And, I'll hear the sounds that they have, and then they'll be like, yeah, I want it to sound like this. And then I'm looking at, like, the ingredients that you're giving me, and like the final product that you want, and I'm just like, I can't make that with this.
Like now that you say that, like I think I'm the total opposite. I don't want my stuff to sound like anybody at all. Like when I master my music on the master fader, I have Ozone 8, right, and which is awesome. I love Ozone 8. But you know how Ozone 8 has that master assistant feature, right? And then it has streaming. And then it also has reference. And then with reference, you can upload a song, and it'll kind of pick up on a little bit of how that song sounds like. Like at first, I was using that just to kind of play with the program. And like, I almost like, I just didn't like how it was making my song not sound like how I wanted it to sound like. But because I didn't really have another more accurate song, I'm like, man, this is almost like someone telling me, hey, you need to sound more like this guy. I just didn't like the way that sounds. So I just always use the streaming. I'm like, yo, just make it sound
loud enough
for the streaming.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think probably 50% of the conversations that I have about mixing with people are I don't want my music to sound like anybody else's music, and the other 50% is I want my song to sound like the stuff that's on the radio. So like it just depends on what you're trying to do with your music.
I feel like the people that want it to sound like somebody else, they're more business oriented, and the people that don't want it to sound like anybody else are more just like passion, like artistic.
They're more driven by their art and not necessarily commercial success.
Yeah.
But there's space for both,
Yeah.
And without one, they kind of don't. The other one doesn't work.
I would say that like the happy medium would be like I want my music to sound like me, but to sound cohesive in a mix by a DJ when they go from a famous record to my record.
Right. No, I mean, I think sometimes people, I think that sometimes people are like, oh, I want my record to sound like this. And I think sometimes people get caught up in like the sounds that are picked versus like the sonics of it.
Right.
Well, what I mean by that is like your record can be like loud and bassy and, bright or tall or, fat and all these other words that you use to describe your song. But maybe your sound choices aren't the best. So sometimes people are like, oh, I want my song to sound like this. And I'll listen to the sounds that they chose. And I'll be like, well, I know what I can do, but I'm probably not going to be able to ever get that close to that thing that you want.
I remember when when I hit you up and I was like, yeah, something about the Chronic 2001. I was like, I remember now. I was like, yo, you can like these songs now, the kick is so punchy and just clear, whereas on the Chronic 2001 by Dr. Dre, you can barely even hear the kicks. You just kind of feel them like the thud.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, yeah, because that album was mixed to be bumped in lowriders,
Mm-hmm.
And that made so much sense to me. Like, wow, that's so true.
Yeah, I mean, music is regional, so whatever is popping in that area, is what's gonna make sense. Like, if you listen to obviously now like all the trap stuff, like that shit's even most like stuff that ever came like from down south always had a lot of bass, and it's because of the place where people listen to those records, typically strip clubs.
I think that like the type of music that I make, I feel like it's kind of for like long drives.
Mm-hmm.
I make that like road trip music, and maybe it wasn't always like that because before I left to California, the music that I made was kind of like it was driving, but it wasn't road trips. It was like cruising through downtown, or it was cruising through the city music.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I went on this long road trip, the style, the wall of sound was more for like just road trips.
Like a long,
yeah.
That makes sense.
You think so?
I think so. I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, like sometimes like it could be a little discouraging when like I try to, so like I'll run the track through Ozone, and then like when I bounce it, I hear it, and like when someone feels a certain way about something, they'll go on the internet and look up an article that supports their argument, and that's what they use.
Yeah.
Like, man, they'll be like, you see, I'm not crazy, and they'll show the link,
the BuzzFeed article.
Yeah. So like, so I'll bounce my tracks, and then I'll play it, but then I'll go to like the master track and I'll play it, and then I'll go on like Apple Music or whatever, and then I'll play someone else's music, and even my master isn't as loud as theirs is. And I looked it up online, and I saw that Spotify and Apple Music, they have their own internal normalizer. So it's like, if you're gonna bounce, so like for those that don't know, a normalizer makes your music even louder, so it was recommended that even when you bounce your master to not squash it so much, that way that when they make it even louder than it is, it doesn't sound distorted.
But also one thing that they also do is that they also turn it down
to preserve dynamic range.
Well, just so that, because all their songs, because like imagine if you went on iTunes and you started playing songs and a bunch of songs were different volumes.
Yeah.
So their system is going to make everything lower so that it works on across all the different songs. Because remember that there's not just modern songs on iTunes. There's old songs too. And they all kind of have to sound like they're at the same level.
Does their like internal normalizer kind of throw off your mixing a little bit?
No. I think that their algorithm and Spotify's is a little bit different, and all the other ones are also a little bit like different amount of turn down and kind of like normalizing is a little bit different. But I never noticed that big of a difference. Like I'll notice, I'll be like, oh, this shit sounds like it's streaming, like especially like in the higher frequencies, I can kind of hear it. But nah, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's that different.
When I went over to your spot the last time, I remember I went over to your spot so that I could with Nixon, so you can just kind of like. I remember we were finalizing the Afterglow project, and like you had all these vinyls and you had your record player, like that kind of makes sense that you're like a bit more of an enthusiast of just vinyl recordings because like just kind of sounds like that has the best quality or organic quality of those albums.
I mean, some of those records sound like shit. Like there's records like I have a bunch of like different like 80s and 90s records, and you play them and they're like, I'm like, this sounds awful. But honestly, for me, no, it's true. There's some like 80s records that sound like shit. There's like no bass. It's like but honestly, for me, I think one of the things that I like about the turntable is like putting a record on and you just play it and then it plays all the way. Like there's no skipping. I mean, you could skip, but there's no like, oh, let me skip to the next track. Like you kind of just let it rock. Yeah. So like now, like I kind of enjoy like, I'll just put like something on, like put my headphones on and just like chill and like listen to it.
Who do you prefer, the Beatles or Rolling Stones?
I'm not a big Rolling Stones fan. I like a lot of Beatles songs. I wouldn't say I'm a huge Beatles fan, but there are a lot of Beatles songs that I think are cool.
Well, who from that era would you say like is someone that you favor?
Man, I fuck with the Beach Boys heavy.
Yeah?
Yeah, I fuck with the Beach Boys a lot. I listen to Pet Sounds pretty regularly. And then even some of their other shit. Like I'm not like a super like I can't tell you every song, but I do fuck with Pet Sounds on a regular basis. Like I'll be like one day like in the car, probably like maybe every 2 or 3 months, I'll be like, I'm fucking listen to Pet Sounds.
Like when you leave the studio and you've just been around all the same music over and over again, do you listen to other music to like cleanse your ear palette, or do you just
sometimes
you just turn it all off? You just nothing.
Sometimes I drive. Sometimes I need to drive in silence. Especially if it's been like a hard day at the studio, like you know, we did a lot of work, worked on a lot of music. I used to listen to like NPR and shit. When I used to, in my like early career, like this is like 2000, and not that I was doing like crazy nights. And I would like leave at like 2, 3 in the morning. There was a show that was on I think it's 91.3. Was the NPR station here? Is it 91.3? Or
I'm not sure.
Well, it was one of those public stations, and there was this jazz show with this dude named Bob Parlucha. I used to fuck with that shit. I used to like get in the car and he would play like crazy jazz shit. Like, but it was like late night, so it was like cool, like chill shit. I used to fuck with that dude heavy. I don't even know if he's still alive, but that shit was dope.
You ever heard of Jolt Radio from here in Miami?
Mm-mm.
Jolt Radio, like they're tight, man. Like if you go on Jolt, I think joltradio.org or jolt.jolt, either radio or without it .org. Like whoever plays the music in those segments, that it is tight, man.
Yeah,
like it's definitely like dope background music that's not too like, you know, like it's not too all up in your face with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it, man. Like I used to listen to like internet radio a lot, but I kind of got away from it, mainly because when you're out in the middle of nowhere, you know, like there's not really that much phone signal anyway. Right. So, you know, like when I was in North California, I would listen to K-Mud a lot. But one thing that I like about K-Mud is that they were more think pieces with background music. You know, I like that. I kind of like that genre where like you have like background ambient music, but what's going on in the background, I mean in the foreground, is then discussing ideas.
That's cool.
That's kind of like what I got a little bit from that new Kanye album. Like, I mean, mind you, it's music, but like in a weird way, it almost sounds like a press release with background beats. You know, it's weird.
I didn't really listen to it. I think I listened to it one time.
Are you a fan of like short albums?
I don't have a problem. I think the Pusha T one was dope.
Amazing.
I loved it. I thought the Kids See Ghosts shit was cool. Like I listened to that probably like 1.5 times. The Deanna Taylor one I really liked,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
You see, like right there, you said you heard it like maybe like a 1.5 a couple times. Like I think that's what people need to like start to take into consideration, that like people come out with music so much now that you can't realistically expect someone to like put your shit on repeat for like a long ass time. You get me?
Nah, for sure. Like I think, and I honestly make an effort to listen to albums more than once. Cause you listen to it the first time, it's all new, and you're just like, oh, and there might be a tracker there that sticks out, and you're like, ooh, But most of the time, it takes a couple of listens to like be like, oh, this is the one that I fuck with, or
Yeah.
to kind of like pick up all the nuance, or not all of it, but some of it. So and I think the cool thing about a short album like that is that you can listen to it a bunch of times, and it doesn't take up a whole day.
Right.
Like you could ride to work and listen to the whole thing.
That was kind of like the idea that I had with like, so like, you mastered the project, the Morera EP. I don't know if you remember. Like, I would hope you remember. Shit, bro. Like the Morera EP around midnight. You were like my go-to engineer for a while, until I started to pick up on it and just kind of do it myself. Like, and like that was kind of like my approach, man. I didn't want to take up too many people's time. Like it just seems like a lot to ask for. Like, yo, bump my album. They look at it and it's like an hour and a half worth of music. They're like, yo, I got shit to do.
You
man.
trying me to dedicate all this time to you? Like that's a lot of time.
Yeah, it seems almost like narcissistic to like ask people like just to feel entitled. Like, yo, bump my whole shit, and like, I'm straight. I understand why some people will just come out with like 1 or 2 songs at a time. I like what's going on now where like people will come out with 3-4 songs at the same time, but they're individual tracks. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, I think that's cool. I mean, I tell people like, and I've been saying this for a while, but I'm like, sometimes people be like, oh, what would be the best way to like send somebody my music? And I'd be like, well, I think the best way is to obviously ask them. Because realistically, when you ask somebody to listen to your music, you asking for that person's time. And then you're asking for their opinion. Like, if you don't know this person, it would be rude to just send them music. I think.
It's like super spammy.
It'd be just beyond spammy. It's rude. It would be like, imagine like you're walking down the street. You're walking down the street and somebody just puts headphones on you and goes, tell me what you think. You'd be like, yo, what the fuck? You'd be ready to fight. But because it's in your inbox, people think that it's okay. And I feel like that shit's an invasion of people's time.
Right.
I think if you want to send somebody music, you should be like, hey, I have these songs that I'd like to send you. Would you be okay with me sending them to you? And most of the time, I think people would be like, yeah. But then you can't also be hounding the person like, did you listen? Did you listen? It's like, no, I need to find the time to listen to your music. Like people ask me all the time, yo, can I send you something? I'm like, yeah, send it. But I'll be like, I will warn you, I can't guarantee that I'm going to listen to it right away. And then by saying that, and if they're understanding, they'll be like, all right, cool. And then when I get to it, I get to it. And I honestly will usually try to listen to everything everybody sends me. And like give them feedback and honest feedback. Like I'll be like, yo, I think you could do this. I think you could do this. I think the kick sucks. I think you could do better chorus or whatever. And this is just my opinion.
And it's just your opinion, right?
I always, hey, this is what I think. You could do what you want, but this is what I think.
Yeah, I remember when I was chopping it up with you when you and I went to that spot that to eat right by SAE. They have
the fucking
where they cut the meat off of the thing
the
spinning.
shawarma.
Yeah, that was fire.
Pita Hut.
Yeah. Pita Hut. That's what it is.
Pita Hut. For all my North Miami people.
Yeah, Pita Hut. Yeah, I remember I was talking with you about that, like how like people need to appreciate just how unfiltered your honesty is, bro. If you tell them, listen, this shit sucks, or like, yo, why are you doing this? This has been done already a long time ago. Like, it's not a personal. I mean, I guess they could if they wanted to take it personal.
Yeah. I mean, I
but
try
it's
not to
a-
use like negative words when giving criticism.
Yeah.
I'll try to give them like, you know, like if I don't like the kick, I'll be like, I don't like how the kick sounds. I think you could do a better kick, or I think the kick could have more bass, or I think you need to layer the kick, or I think you need to sing it higher, or you need to sing with less energy, or you need to like. I always try to give them like not. Because it's frustrating when somebody goes, I don't like it. Like, that doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't tell me what it is that you don't like.
Yeah.
Now, if you go, I don't like it, and I don't know what it is about it that I don't like, I can accept that. But I also understand that maybe you don't even want to take the time to tell me what you don't like. You're just dismissing it.
Yeah.
So I try not to do that. And what I typically try to do is like try to really listen and be able to tell that person what about it is it that I don't like.
But see, like that falls under the category of like constructive criticism. Like there are some people like that they'll be like, "Yo, if you only get positive feedback on your music, that means that you're not there yet. Once you start getting the negative comments and all that means you're doing something right, bro." You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think,
and it's like
I think that comes from like that like kind of ideology. Like if everybody agrees with you, you must not be saying anything that's that important.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Man, because sometimes I be getting sometimes, man, like, I be getting some, like, every now and then, like, on YouTube, I'll get, like, some troll or something that they try to just make me want to, like, kill myself or something. Like, this shit is, I remember a few months back, right? I got this one random dude that, like, his little picture on YouTube was, like, of a decomposed face, you know? And then he left, like, a paragraph on 5 or 6 of my videos, like just destroying me, like, you're a fucking fat slob, you and your retarded dog, fuck you, this and
What the
that.
fuck?
And I'm like, what would possess this person to go out of his way and just like, what happened to you? Who took a shit in your chocolate shake, bro? Like, what's wrong with you, bro?
Is that
You know?
is that the title of a book?
What?
Who took a shit in your chocolate shake?
H2O said that one time years ago in a rhyme, and it always stuck with me.
That shit is fantastic.
Yeah, who took a shit in your chocolate shake? I remember I was like, that was
That
tight.
sounds like the title of a book.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes you have to think about like, why would you, if you hate me that much, why wouldn't you just turn me off
Right.
and just walk away?
Like, if you don't like me, you ain't like me, fine. It costs you nothing. Pay me no mind. You know? Like, just, like, bro, for real, man. Like,
Bars.
that's Jay-Z. You know? But yeah, man, so, like, I have no problem taking constructive criticism, but, like, it just baffles me that some people are just so full of hate that they go out of their way just to spread their misery, you know? And especially on the internet, because I guarantee that person wouldn't have said that to my face, you know?
Nah, yeah. Behind the keyboard, everybody's, you know, Conan.
That's where like having the freedom of speech is abused, you know? Like someone has like the freedom of speech and this is what they say with it, you know?
I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I feel sorry for people who do shit like that. Like, not sorry, but I'm just like what? Yeah, who took a shit in your chocolate shake?
Yeah, for real, bro.
What are you so mad about?
You know? And that's why, like, man, I appreciate, like, whenever I reach out to, like, some homies and, like, for example, like you, and you'll be like, it's like, this mix needs to, you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's great because you have my best interest in mind.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I noticed about you, like, and that's why it made sense that you took up this position at SAE to be, like, the head instructor for a while. And, like, because you just want to see, it's almost like you're trying to preserve the well-being of, like, the music of the future, you know?
Yeah.
You're like,
That's just my responsibility.
damn.
It is. And everybody else who does this shit for a living, like, that's your responsibility. Like, somebody sat down and was patient enough to show me a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And, like, my job is now to show somebody else all that shit plus everything else I picked up along the way. What the fuck do I do dying with all this information?
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
You're just there laying in your coffin with, like, this notebook, like, you can have it now.
Yeah, like, that
You know?
doesn't make any sense. Like, let me share all these things that I learned so you don't make some of these mistakes, but also so that you understand, you know, how to do this and be amazing at it. Like,
You're like the Gary V of, like, audio engineering.
I wish.
I think that you and Gary Vee would have a pretty awesome conversation. You
I
know?
like Gary Vee. I like that he curses because I curse a lot. I haven't cursed that much today here, but
his cursing is like, you can tell it comes from a place of like frustration. He's like, just fucking do it.
that's the same place my cursing comes from.
Word.
I was when I was teaching all the time, I would always preface the first day with like, I curse a lot. I was like, and if you're gonna be offended, you have to tell me right now. It doesn't mean I'm gonna stop cursing. I just need to know that you're offended. You know, but like I would curse in class, and like I think people kind of enjoyed it because they could tell it was just like I wasn't trying to like sugarcoat it. I was just like trying to tell you the truth.
That's like that one Family Guy skit where like this guy's talking to a class and he has his seat backwards, and then the two students are like, "Look, he's talking to us with his seat backwards. Let's listen to what he has to say." You know, because they're like, "This guy gets it. He gets us." You know, I mean, but I would imagine that like, man, like the type of personality that you have, like you don't really seem like the type of person that people would get really mad at in the studio. You know, like
No. I mean I think early on, while I was developing as an engineer, and like my first kind of like forays into the studio, obviously, like, you know, there were I'm pretty sure that along the way they were. I know that at one point, like early on in my career, like, you know, you're taught like, yo, don't talk, and you gotta be a fly on the wall, and then you gotta be like, you know, this objective, like, you know, person, and you don't want to kill the vibe. So I think at one point I became really like sterile, and people would be like, I remember there'd be sessions would be like, I can't tell if you like it or not. Like the artist would be in the booth and be like, does this sound good? And I'd be like, yeah, it sounds good. And they'd be like, I can't tell. You're not moving. Like, you're not bobbing your head. You're not like, and I would be like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't bob my head. And it was just like weird, like uncomfortable shit. And then people would be like, yo, I need my engineers to like bob their heads or something. And I'll be like,
you should get a bobblehead doll and put
just
it right
have it,
next to
like-
you, and then like when they say that, you just like flick the head real
that
quick, and
would
it
have
sounds
just
like
drove people crazy. But like now, like, you know, when I enjoy stuff, like I'll kind of sing along and stuff, and I've relaxed a lot more. But and plus, like those early days, like I was like just really like I guess like so focused on everything like going right that I wouldn't sometimes enjoy the music.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense, man. I mean, I remember when I recorded that song, Ambitious, all those years ago with Scams in them, like when you were sharing the studio with them. And like, it was just like reassuring that I would like look over to you, like over the computer, and you had that like stink face that like, yeah, this is good. And I'd be like, damn, that's tight. You know? I was still like a little, I was in that place in my life where I was still like a little starstruck, actually working with people that were like way ahead of me in career or like in status. And like, it's like, I wasn't sure how to like process that, you know?
Yeah.
But word, man. I mean, look, so like, we're getting close to an hour now. It's crazy how that time just flies by, you know? Would you mind telling the people like what you're working on at the moment? Okay, all right, Morty. There you go.
Morty just jumped in my lap.
There you are.
Well, right now, like I'm always working on like a bunch of different stuff. Morty's trying to say something.
Yeah. He's like, take me out.
I'm always working on different stuff. Just like mixing and like recording people and like working with like young artists who are trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things I always have to offer is just like that experience of being on working on or been worked on those big records and just kind of being able to help people like navigate creating their own music. I kind of get a kick out of that. So I've just been kind of doing a lot of that. And then I have my own studio. So now there's like a responsibility to, you know, pay the rent.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I take a lot of mixing work. Yeah, just working like some cool band, like a lot of different shit. Like I work with a band out of Georgia called The Norm, which is pretty cool. They just played Bonnaroo this year.
Nice.
Yeah, I've mixed a couple of songs for them. I'm doing some stuff with this guy. Goes by Disco Neil. He works with like Ape Drums. And
I know who Disco Neil is.
Yeah, Disco used to be my intern.
Really?
Yeah, so he's doing some like cool like reggae stuff. So I'm kind of working on that now for him, and just still doing sessions. I did a session the other day with that girl Jessie Reyes.
Cool.
Yeah, that was pretty dope. She's really dope.
That's tight, man. Like, I'm looking forward to the next time that you and I can get in the studio and work on something, man.
Yeah, man.
Before we get off here, I want to thank you, bro. I want to thank you for recommending me the Focusrite 18i8 that I bought off of you. You know what I'm saying? The Warm Audio WA87 mic that I got right here.
Cheer.
These headphones that I'm wearing, which are what are the brands again? What
The
does it
Bear
say?
Dynamic.
Yes, bro. Thank you. This is the thing. Like, one thing that I'm so appreciative about you is that I'll hit you up. Sometimes at weird hours too. I'll be feeling bad texting you, you know? Like, yo, bro, I need to get some mixed headphones. What do you recommend? You just send me the screenshot, and like without even thinking twice, I'll just buy it, you know? I'll be like, all right, word, bro, look, my mic is sounding a little funny. Like that sound you heard earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be like, man, I want to get a mic to upgrade. And you just told me get the WA87. Like,
Yeah.
So like, you have never steered me wrong, bro. And you're a decent driver too. You know? So like, thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Art. You're welcome.
So look, man, if y'all haven't heard the Transit City Project, it's on all streaming platforms. Frank, if you haven't heard it, it's on all streaming platforms. All right. Morty needs to be taken for a walk right now. He's
he
such
got
a
sad
good dog.
face.
Yeah.
He's like, fuck you guys.
Y'all can find. Oh, hey, you won that contest, right?
I sure did.
You fucking won the contest. Yo.
Shout out to everybody who voted.
He
I
won
won
it.
a pair of speakers.
Yeah, there you go. If you go on his Instagram, which is Alphabeat Music, right? ALPHA beat BEAT and then music. You'll see that one of his recent posts is like this really cool looking speaker, studio monitors, and he won it, man. That's tight. You're popular, bro.
I mean, I just leveraged the power of social media to win that contest.
Very
I kind of felt like I cheated a little bit, but you know,
No,
whatever.
well, don't, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Okay. Word. All right, guys. We out of here, man. All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Medianoche.
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 Podcast.
Medianoche.
Podcast.
Medianoche.
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 Podcast.